And the cryptos, Ethereum as well after the merge. It seems like 21 is far in the rearview mirror now, I guess.
Yes, unfortunately, the price, 21,000, is in the rearview mirror. We can see Bitcoin down about 5% over the trailing 24 hours. Over the last 5 days, you can see we just kind of fell out of bed Sunday evening. That was right before stock futures opened. And one thing that a lot of people on Twitter have been noticing is that Bitcoin is an excellent proxy, for where futures might end up.
Finally, the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, are out with their rate adjustment, and as expected, it was an aggressive hike of 75 basis points, which is an additional 0.75% increase in rates. As expected, the markets responded with all assets dipping, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. Raoul Pal, with funds manager Dan Moorhead, whose funds management firm has $5.8 billion in management, talk about the cryptocurrency market and what the future holds for Bitcoin in particular. Welcome to today's video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It's always appreciated. Now let's listen to the finance expert's take on Bitcoin.
Let's talk first about the macro setup that we are today and how it's affected crypto, because I think a lot of people thought that crypto and macro were different things, and they've actually merged into something similar. Talk through a bit about that.
Yeah, I think the point I would make is that, crypto is this multi-decade, very secular transformation that's happening. And then it's going to have very small cyclical correlations with risk assets, right? And it's kind of like, any disruptive thing like Apple or Amazon stock. There's short periods of time where it's correlated with the S&P 500 or whatever risk metric you want to use. But over the last 20 years, it's done its own thing. And that's what I think will happen with blockchain is, over the next, 10 years or whatever, it's going to do its own thing based on its own fundamentals. Over very short periods of time, it'll be connected to the macro situation.
Yeah, because to me, it's a network adoption model. That's what's prevalent in space, which is why it's exponential in nature. But there's periods of time when liquidity gets taken away. And a lot of people didn't realize that liquidity is going to affect all assets. So talk people through a little bit about what liquidity is and how it affects assets, because you've seen this in macro markets forever.
Yeah, and so with huge amounts of money being printed, it really gave an impetus to anything that was fixed quantity like Bitcoin or blockchain. With the Fed stopping that, it's not going to have that extra afterburner that's pushing crypto like it was the first 2 years of this pandemic. But again, the secular story's still there, and I think people are going to realize that if rates are rising, it makes investing a lot of things like bonds and equities difficult, but there are asset classes like blockchain that are not in any way directly connected to interest rates, so they can trade on their own. And that's my strong view, is that no matter what happens in the normal macro markets, blockchain can trade under its own fundamentals.
Bitcoin has in recent years behaved as traditional stocks. Its performance has been consistent with the US PMI market trends, and so has its reactions been in tandem with CPI report. Recently, we see how Bitcoin reacted to the CPI report, and we also know how in August Bitcoin lost all the gains of July's rally in response to the equities market crash that came after Jerome Powell's speech. This response to macroeconomic conditions has made investors start rethinking using Bitcoin as a backup against unfavorable market conditions. Many investors had hoped that Bitcoin would decouple from the traditional equities markets, hoping it was disruptive enough to perform against the economic weather. Unfortunately, this has not been the case. Instead, Bitcoin is settling well with other markets such as Nasdaq, S&P 500, and growth stocks generally. A successful decoupling from the macroeconomics that drive growth stocks would see Bitcoin moving in the opposite direction, especially when growth stocks tank. If this can happen, Bitcoin is very likely to see a surge in investments, as investors would be more confident in using the cryptocurrency as a backup when diversifying their portfolio. Dan believes that Bitcoin would eventually decouple from other asset markets.
Do you think that's a structural shift that's taking place, where Bitcoin is now not the leader? Is that a sign of times to come because of the less use cases? It has one use case that's very clear to people. But how do you think of that and Bitcoin's dominance overall and its relative performance?
Yeah, no, I think that is a good point that obviously there was a time it was the only blockchain, so it was 100% of the industry. And then as more and more interesting use cases come out, I think Bitcoin dominance or its share of the overall market is in a long-term secular decline. While it's going up 10x, right? I think Bitcoin's going to go up a ton. It's just other things I think would go up more. And so, it's kind of like, in the tech space, 20 years ago, Microsoft was kind of the whole industry. And since then, it's gone up 10x, which is amazing, great return. But other things, Apple, Google, Facebook, whatever, have gone up even more. And so I think that's my analog for the blockchain space.
Bitcoin is losing its market dominance. Bitcoin has gone from owning 100% market share in 2009 when it came online to having to share the cryptocurrency market with competitors in 2011, when alternatives to Bitcoin started popping up. In 2014, Bitcoin had a market dominance of 99.5%, which has dropped to about 42% this year, but the competition is only getting tougher for the biggest cryptocurrency. While Bitcoin is not undergoing many innovations, other blockchains are innovating rapidly and raising the stakes. The biggest drop in Bitcoin's market share was from 2017 to 2018, dropping from 95.37% to just 37.64%. But interestingly, this did not correlate to a value drop. Instead, Bitcoin price shot to $14,980 from $830, a 480% growth that it covered for Bitcoin's 58% market share. This astronomical market growth happened thanks to the 2017 crypto boom, which drew in a wave of new participants to the crypto market. Everyone wanted a taste of the profits. The only thing that would sustain Bitcoin's valuation and perhaps increase its valuation is a continued growth to the general crypto market. Dan says Bitcoin would eventually be relegated, the way companies like Microsoft eventually lost dominance in the software market.
I just think that institutions love yield. And once you start establishing ways of valuing yield, you're going to bring a lot of other players. Because, one of the reasons people didn't adopt gold, even though the industry fought for years to get it adopted, is like the pension fund said, well, it doesn't help the yield that we need. And now we've got a Web3 asset, a digital asset that has a yield that's of significant size. I think it's super interesting.
It is. And, proof of stake is the way corporate governance works in every other security, right? One share, one vote. And so I think institutions will be able to get their head around, a proof of stake consensus model pretty quickly.
Any risks you see in this merge? So there's this point where not everybody agrees with us. We both think crypto's bottomed. I think the business cycle's pretty clear. We're going into recession, and I kind of think the rate situation changes. But a lot of people don't think this, so they're really nervous.
Yield returns is a major advantage traditional stocks have over cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is very much like gold that has its value stored only in itself, but yields no profits to the investor. Bitcoin investors, like gold investors, have to rely on market valuation of the cryptocurrency going up to enable them to sell to get a profit. Raoul Pal believes that with the ETH proof of stake coming on board and giving investors yield, Bitcoin may become unattractive. Mr. Raoul also believes that the crypto market has bottomed and Bitcoin cannot slide down to lower prices. Do you think he's right? Let's hear your thoughts in the comments. Before you go, please hit the like button and also subscribe. Thanks for watching.